Imagine being lost in a strange city with only a set of directions that were written in a language that you hadn't even heard anyone ever speak before. Now, obviously, trying to decode the meaning would not just be one unproductive, frustrating, hot mess, but furthermore, it would be legitimately, completely, and utterly pointless, as we would have no idea what direction to even start heading in, where these directions would have us end up, or if they were even directions to a location. As far as we could tell, they could be the directions in how to make Nanny Rhoda's famous hot dog soup, which, more or less, is the same crappy predicament that we face when trying to make sense of or understand anything about a narcissist. And it dawned on me that what truly keeps us stuck and makes these creatures so difficult to grasp, hard to avoid falling in to their crazy-making asylum straight off of Elm Street, and or let go of without the narcissist's vile voice lingering in your head with the 10 million unanswered questions, is because our approach to trying to understand them, their behaviors, is unfortunately an approach that is doomed from the start. Much like trying to navigate your way with a set of directions in a language that you don't speak. It simply won't work, because narcissists are rooted and operate in a fundamentally different emotional and moral framework. Their motivations are driven by power, control, and domination, and behave in a way that is so profound and so alien that it is legitimately unimaginable to anyone with empathy, object constancy, intersubjective understanding, and morals to be able to fully grasp in its entirety. So much so that even those who have stared these creatures in their eyeballs and have repeatedly felt the pain from their insidious and inhumane blows, and know without question that these creatures 100% absolutely exist, still cannot fathom the idea of it completely, because it defies the very things ingrained in our human nature, with connection, cooperation, and empathy so deeply embedded into our beliefs, survival instincts, and help shape the way that we interpret and make sense of others' behaviors, that trying to analyze their actions that are so misaligned from a framework of reason and morality only ever leads to further confusion and creating more contradictions, because it is incomprehensible for our brain imagining someone with a genuine lack of empathy or concern for others, subconsciously causing us to begin rationalizing their behaviors that align with the way that we think and behave from our default mode network, consistently driving our focus back to connection, emotion, and how others perceive us, because their emotional and moral framework is so foreign to ours. These default assumptions ends up creating more conflicts. Misinterpretation of their motive downplays their disregard and often keeps victims clinging on to the hope, imagining that they must care deep down despite all of the cruelty, because we assume that these behaviors must have some kind of emotional basis, as well as contributed to theories, beliefs, and social misconception, adding more complexity and confusion. While it may have resolved the conflict of the emotional misalignment, that in turn creates contradictions in their characteristics that logically don't make any sense, and our brain keeps trying to come up with different theories or make sense of it. But you see, here's the thing. Much to narcissist dismay, the true power behind their being able to manipulate our minds and distort our reality truly has nothing to do with their really being powerful or some kind of magically delicious mind-bending geniuses. Nope. The true power really belongs to words themselves and how they impact our thought process, both consciously and subconsciously. And narcissists have just learned through trial and error, driven by their need for power and control. They are hyper attuned to subtle cues, how to read people's body language, and have picked up on how certain phrases and words can evoke strong emotional responses that over time they have refined and precisely figured out just the right things to say to exploit our emotional hierarchy that, unfortunately for us, overrides our logical defenses, regardless of how confident or insecure we may believe ourselves to be. No one is fully immune for potentially getting sucked in to their traps. That, contrary to what many times gets said, has nothing to do with being foolish, weak, gullible, blind, codependent, or anything outside of being human, which may cause some of you to think, great, so what this chick is basically saying is that we're all just fucked. However, it is actually to the contrary, as it's from within the knowing that no one is immune that ultimately helps protect us the most and allows you to be okay with letting go and burying these ghosts in the ground once and for all, leaving them and the past behind you where they belong. And rather than focusing on why they did or said something or trying to understand the reasonings behind their behaviors, and start focusing on understanding why it's affecting us the way that it is and the specific triggers that create a stronger emotional pull that in turn have the greatest impact on our thought process, that in essence is what gives them the ability to have influence on our perceptions and beliefs at the subconscious level. As it's through this awareness and understanding that even if we can't prevent ourselves from being triggered or our emotions getting the best of us at the moment, will eventually resurface back at the conscious level, that you can reevaluate and analyze the situation that had occurred without our emotions completely getting in our own way by disabling our ability to have a logical or reasonable thought about anything, and can remind ourselves that whatever smoke they were trying to blow up your ass or blame you for their having to go ahead and do whatever douchebag thing they did, that it is nothing more than they're trying to mess with your head. And this reminder that it was just them messing with you breaks the loop of uncertainty, allowing our brain to get out of resolve overdrive and you from having a ping pong tournament match in your head with all of the questions and what ifs, trying to make logical sense out of something completely nonsensical. That again is not your fault, as our brain is functionally designed to respond to emotion over logic, especially when our stronger emotions get triggered, such as joy, anger, love, nostalgia, fear, or when it's something that questions or resonates with our identity, autonomy, values, beliefs, worldview, or creates a sense of belonging or exclusion. And even more so in moments that we're under stress or in fear, as they are tied to our survival instincts, triggering our brain to sound off the danger ahead alarms, prompting our brain to take immediate action without any kind of logical analysis or interpretation. And they also tend to be more vividly remembered, as it's noted to signal something being important for our survival or well-being. And then, to make it only more unfortunate, there are certain cognitive and psychological mechanisms that enhance or give a turbo boost to the emotional charge that certain things have, such as when these emotional triggers are coming from a source that we either have a previous connection or hold intrinsic value or meaning to our lives, or somebody who is previously deemed as being credible, respectable, such as authority figures, as well as anything that creates a disruption or throws our balance off kilter, such as inconsistencies, contradictions, and unpredictabilities, because it's within our survival instinct and innate drive to have balance, understanding, and a predictable environment. And when things aren't predictable, such as the erratic behaviors of a narcissist, and it becomes a threat and kicks us into this resolve overdrive, consistently trying to make sense of what we don't understand and won't stop until it's been resolved, even if it is these rationalizations that we've made at the subconscious level. But with the narcissist narrative forever changing, our brain becomes so preoccupied with trying to keep up or make sense of it. And after experiencing repeated cycles of this brain fuckery at its finest, and so many failed attempts at trying to fix, resolve, or improve this relationship, the brain gets exhausted and stops trying, and we develop learned helplessness and become more dependent upon the narcissist. And because they lack guilt, remorse, or have any regard for you, they are able to push boundaries and repeatedly use these tactics without batting an eyelash or thinking twice about it. Weaponize words to control your perceptions so that they can continue taking advantage and getting what they want. The most important thing to remember is that they carry this weight because we have empathy, emotional depth, intersubjective understanding, and have concern not only for others, but how others perceive us, and the desire to connect. But narcissists don't. Words don't process the same for them. And trying to outsmart or defeat a narcissist doesn't backfire or have anything to do with intellect or truly being smarter, faster, or have more wit, but is because you cannot outmaneuver someone whose existence is predicated on staying one step ahead of you and anyone else for that matter at all times, and that not only doesn't have a single fuck to give for anybody but themselves, but they literally don't see you as a person, and words do not have the same effect on them that they do the average person, and why there is no amount of love or compassion that is going to get through to them, help the relationship, or bring redemption from being some soulless being, because they, one, never appreciated those things in the first place, and two, because they have no desire to change, nor do they even consider themselves in need of it. There's nothing that you or anybody else is going to say or do to change that. Even when you finally get to that point where enough is enough, and you cannot take another second of one person's evil BS, and you know that they are nothing more than just that, it still is impossible for us to fully be able to grasp and wrap our head around, despite all of the cruel acts that they have bestowed upon us. At least not all the time. And why the only way to deal with a narcissist is to cut them off, because they will not stop until you do. Because again, they are driven by control, power, and domination. And any chance they can to get into your mind and manipulate you into doing whatever it is that they want at the moment, they'll do. And you are truly worth and deserve so much more. Start focusing on you. Start getting back the life that they had no right to take from you. Recognizing these triggers when you feel yourself ruminating or trying to come up with some explanation to humanize their behaviors, because there is no logical, reasonable explanation except they are what they are. And there is nothing that you can do to change that. You did not create this monster, and it is not your job to tame the beast. So focus on you. Fight for you. Fuck the narcissist.